All right. I am here with Jeff Gabriel Silva, the director of the upcoming film Black Monk. Thank you for joining me today and for having me be a part of your project as one of your producers. How are we feeling?
We're feeling great. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to more and more collaboration.
Of course. I'm excited to talk about this project because it is unique for me. We'll get into the elements, the landscape, the people attached to the project, the language overall. The title of the film is El Monje Negro, which translates into the Black Monk. And it starts with our lead, Andres, who is a musician that suffers from a nervous breakdown at the beginning of the story. And I feel like that nervous breakdown stems from the fact that he's in a state of grief. He's grieving his lack of accomplishments, he's grieving the loss of his mother. And as he's trying to ground himself in life again, he starts being haunted by what the audience will come to know as the Black Monk. So tell us a little bit about this project, its story, and where did this lore come from?
Absolutely. So, this film definitely has a lot of aspects that reflect what I've lived through. I believe that I definitely do not separate myself from my art. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it isn't. So there's a lot of here commonalities that this musician, the lead, shares with what I've lived through personally. And it was also reflected and inspired by this short story by Anton Chekhov of the same name, The Black Monk. When I read that short story, I was blown away by its language, by its beauty, by its commentary on social classes in the very Chekhovian way. Um, and as I, daydreamed about that story, and as I questioned myself, I kind of came to the conclusion, man, I would love to in some way adapt this material. Maybe not as a straight adaptation, but take a lot of elements from it to carve out my own film from. Um, and again, Chekhov is someone that I really respect and admire, someone whose tonality I love and can, kind of also respond upon. So the Black Monk project, was born from that kind of encounter. I took a lot of that language, I made it my own. I set it in Guatemala, which for me was a huge leap. As a director, as a cinematographer, a lot of the work that I've done has been here in Chicago. Um, so to then make the decision to film internationally was a very big leap. But I believe that if you don't take these chances or opportunities when you can, then you might not progress as much as you hope and desire to. So I set for myself that goal. We're going to make an international film. It's going to be in Guatemala. I am half Guatemalan, but at the time I hadn't been back to Guatemala in 20 years. So there was a lot of fear attached to that, right?
Yeah, of
Because
course.
the Guatemala of 20 years ago, it's much different than the Guatemala of now. The Guatemala of 20 years ago in my childhood was a Guatemala filled with family members, filled with people that would cater to me as a child, that would drive me around the country, that would show me the best parts of Guatemala, and all that. The comfort of just being a kid, with a strong support system. And so 20 years later, that's not really as existent. So in Guatemala, currently I do have my cousin, who I consider my brother. He's the owner of this bar called El Ilegal, which is this really cool spot in Antigua, Guatemala. Through El Ilegal, he's just met a lot of amazing creatives, visual artists, filmmakers, musicians, etc. He's really fostered at El Ilegal this beautiful creative community. Um, and so because Perico is there in Antigua, Guatemala, when I had a desire to make this film, The Black Monk, and make it an international film, immediately I said I have to talk to Perico and see if this is even feasible in terms of any context, any leads. What does it look like for me to be on the ground with a camera making a movie in Guatemala? So far away from home, and not just a movie that is bare bones, but one that's very ambitious. Um, and so I felt that out. I traveled to Guatemala for the first time in 20 years, earlier this year, and as you can imagine, all the emotions that come flooding, right? Not having been home, so to speak, in quite a while, it was just an amazing experience. And moving forward from that point, there was just no way I was not going to make this film in Guatemala in one way or another.
Of course. Yeah. And I find it very intentional that this very magical, surrealist, existential film is based in Guatemala because there are so many leading surrealist Latina voices, such as Isabel Allende, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. O sea, it's a lot. I think it's the perfect landscape for it once I read the script. And with that being said, you are working with some amazing Guatemalan talent. How much of those details are you willing to share?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy that you brought up magic realism. I think it's a term that I definitely have grown up with. You mentioned Isabel Allende, one of my favorite books of all time, La Casa de los Espíritus by Isabel Allende is amazing, ridiculous. I think somewhere logged into the back of my brain, I'm like, one day I'll make, an adaptation of that book. And you mentioned one of my all-time favorite actors, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I'm half Colombian. Gabriel Garcia was the great Colombian author. Um, there's just so much richness in there that I can't even get started. And so elements of that magic realism for sure make their way into the Black Monk film, for sure, for sure, for sure. Stephen and I have actually talked along the lines of going from a magical realism where it's a little bit more indebted to fantasy based ideas towards more of a magic mysticism, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more rather than realism with kind of odd twist surreality as opposed to the full on magic realism where, for example, one of my favorite Gabriel Garcia Marquez stories, an angel falls to earth and then the townsfolk take it upon themselves to heal this angel back to life until it can fly away again, right?
Yeah.
I think it's so beautiful. And by the way, they keep him inside of a cage because he's a stranger born to death. So the Black Monk doesn't have a full-fledged angel or characters like that, but we do hint in that direction. They're definitely odes
Yeah.
in that regard.
On the Black Monk, you are working with some long-term collaborators that you've worked with before. Just to say some names, we have Steven Garcia as your DP. We have Natalie Bonanno as your production designer. What's it like to frequently work with these folks and creatives?
I love working with them. Specifically, Stephen and I have grown really, really close over the past year. And this project has, as you can imagine, brought us even closer together. Stephen, I feel, is a dream collaborator in that he shares just a lot of the same sensibilities that I have. He is a great visionary in his own right. He wouldn't tell you that, but I'm telling you that. He is extremely creative, intelligent. He's also someone that's very just grounded and really cares about the art of making films, which I have always been too. So to find someone like Steven for me has been truly a blessing. This film, in many ways, in its pre-production and its as we go through production, would definitely lack a lot if Steven were not around. And also Natalie Bonanno, who's amazing in her own right. She is just, I like to say that in our team here of three, when we've been working as on pre-production, you know, Natalie and I are like the dreamers in many ways, where we can just go off into fantasy land, and Steven kind of grounds us in reality. So, early on as we worked through the script, talking through various ideas, Natalie and I would be like, "Oh, what if we had a dragon here? And what if we have this, and happen?" And Steve's like, "Wait a minute, hey, let's really check into what we're trying to say here. Dragons aren't going to cut it." So I love that as a trio, we've been able to balance each other out and again, really approach the creation of this film as truly something that's just very close to all of our souls, very close to what we feel is the art of filmmaking.
I do want to highlight that filmmaking, specifically as we trickle out of a pandemic, it's not easy. There are going to be a lot of hurdles. So if you feel comfortable sharing, what have been some of the toughest aspects of putting this project together, specifically a international project where you have crew flying out from Chicago and you're working with local talent?
Absolutely. This script has a lot of energy to it. There are a lot of locations. We have a big cast, a lot of extras involved. And when we were on the ground in Guatemala, Steven and I, our cinematographer, I expressed to him my fear that we were tackling a lot of things. Um, I asked them, "Hey, Steven, do you think we'll be able to pull this off? Should we reduce the script so that perhaps we only film it in one location or two locations?" the script involves us going from a bedroom scene to the exterior of that apartment, going on a chicken bus ride that gets assaulted, and then arriving at this grandiose coffee plantation estate and all that's involved in the estate itself, the mystery, the folkloric aspect of the black monk showing up. We have an animal involved, and then we end up at a cemetery.
Yeah, we also have a firearm safety coordinator, a stunt coordinator. Not to spoil too much, but there's a lot of elaborate details happening.
Yes, a lot of moving pieces, and the most reasonable thing would be to just again just film this in one location. Like, why are you going through all this trouble? Find a beautiful spot in Antigua, Guatemala. It's going to be gorgeous no matter what, and just make a 10-minute film there. But I think Steven and I are very ambitious. We know what we're capable of, and so we're shooting for the moon. Right? We're going for the home run. There's no way you would prevent us from pulling off our heart's desires as much as we can. Most definitely, we're grounded and we are trained filmmakers, and we have our sights really well set, and we have this incredible team supporting us. But we're also swinging for the fences,
yeah.
Right? We're taking these creative risks that we most definitely would not have taken in Chicago, for example, because Chicago is a very comforting and it's home for us. We might be a little bit more reasonable. That's it. So, Guatemala, it's become this just wonderful dream realization of ours to just explore and shoot out there. This, in many ways, the spiritual journey together that we're taking and making this happen. So again, it's just very beautiful. And projects like this don't come around that often. You work with your favorite collaborators as much as you can under different circumstances. Sometimes scripts are short, sometimes they're long, sometimes there's a lot of cast involved or not. But it's not that you get the opportunity every day to make a film, again, in a country like Guatemala, a beautiful tropical country like Guatemala, and have a great story behind it.
Yeah. Something that I took away from the pre-production process of this film is when our production designer, Natalie Bonanno, we were in dialogue regarding the details of some scene. What should be the scale of it? Should we downsize realistically? And Natalie very calmly said, I think we should plan for our desires. And I think everyone, you were on that call, everyone kind of went quiet. And then maybe one of us giggled. And we were like, we should plan for our desires. If we're going to execute this, let's dream big. And if on the day of that specific scene we need to downscale, by all means. But for right now, let's dream big and let's execute. So yeah, there's a lot of tough elements, a lot of moving parts. But like Steven, our DP, said, I think with the right production crew, we're going to hit a home run. And so there's a lot going on. What do you want your investors, your viewers, your supporters to take away from the film on a closing note?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up Natalie's comment. That speaks volumes to just her soul and her spirit when it comes to the movie making process, which again is what I admire about her, why I love having her on this project. When thinking about cast, I have to go back to when I decided to make this film in Guatemala. I have another cousin, actually Pericos' brother, who lives here in the States. And a few years ago, as I was going to film school, taking directing more seriously, he mentioned to me you should really check out these contemporary Guatemalan films by this really well-known young director in Guatemala by the name of Jairo Bustamante. And of course, I jumped on that opportunity. I started watching, the first film of Jairo Bustamante that I watched was Ishkanul. From there, I branched on to a couple of his other features, Temblores and La Llorona. And I fell in love with many elements of his style, of his cast, most definitely, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, I filed all these people, right? I said, wow, this is amazing. The actors that he's using are amazing. The quality of cinematography is amazing. Of course, the audio, the general tempo, pace, mood, ambiance, everything is working really well together. And it surprised me because, Guatemalan contemporary cinema just hadn't been on my radar. I think I was definitely more into international films outside of Latin America, more so European films, etc. For whatever reason. And I filed that in the back of my head. And so when it came to this Black Lung project, I had obviously a wish list of it'd be cool to work with so and so, it'd be cool to get this person on board. This is my dream actor, whatever have you. And as this project got rolling and materializing, all of a sudden I'm talking to, actors that I've seen, and I've admired from afar. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's looking like I'm going to be able to actually have these great artists on my own project, my own short film. I was just blown away by that, and it's come to be so. So some of the actors that I'm really looking forward to working with, of course, all of them, but the ones that I again kind of have admired over these past few years. Maria Telon is a big name in Guatemala. The fact that she's on this project for me is again just mind blowing. Mauricio Armas, who has won awards for his role in Temblores. Amazing. I remember seeing him for the first time on screen and thinking, that's a pretty great actor. I love everything about him. Wouldn't it be cool to make some sort of movie? Maybe not with him because he's kind of high up there, but with that kind of general look and an actor quasi like him. And guess what? He's our lead in this
Amazing.
So that's amazing. Yeah, and I can even talk about Mr. Gomar, who is like a Guatemalan legend.
Yeah.
This is someone that lives in Antigua. This is someone that's been on so many projects, not just in Guatemala, but overseas in Spain. When you look at the list of movies that he's been on, when you look at who he's collaborated with, worked with, Javier Bardem, among others, Antonio Banderas, it's like, oh my God, like I'm working with actors that have hit, at the international level.
Yeah.
Not just locally. So that again is just such a huge a blessing for me.
Yeah. As soon as the casting was coming in, it was just so wonderful seeing the names and the talent being attached to the project. And I feel like that's one step forward to perhaps putting specifically American filmmakers, reviewers onto Guatemalan independent cinema, like you said. I feel like it's very easy for everyone to look abroad when it comes to cinema movements, talent, etc. When it's just easy to not look at home first, if that makes sense. So we talked about a few
Absolutely.
important elements of the film. We've talked about the plot. We talked about your lead, Andres. We've talked about talent being attached, some of your long-term collaborators. What are other important elements of this film that you would like to highlight?
Sure. What I also want to mention in connection to cast is the role that Katia Archila has played, who's our producer in Guatemala, as well as our casting director, Jose Peña Alonso. These are a couple of amazing people in Guatemala, some of the best in the industry down there, that have facilitated our conversations, our locking in of key personnel down in Guatemala. Again, without their help, I wouldn't be getting the names that I'm getting. I wouldn't be getting, again, the people that I mentioned, Maria Telon, Señor Gomar, nor would I be working with someone like Loco Gonzalez, who's one of the best cinematographer gaffers in Guatemala. So I do want to highlight, their roles. I also want to highlight something that I spoke with the casting director about in one of our conversations. I told them, I can't believe how incredibly easy it's been for me to work with you in terms of locking in cast and how fun the process has been. I can't believe that, we're getting some quality auditions, despite the fact that I'm hundreds of miles away in Chicago. You're down there working your magic. And I was telling him, it's really been working with you easier than I imagined. Language for me isn't necessarily a barrier because I speak Spanish fairly well, but in terms of culture, in terms of, perhaps some politics, how do we play, being that I'm not coming in as a full-fledged multi-million-dollar production,
Right.
At the end of the day, I'm a kid, that's making a film, low budget film in Guatemala. I'm a complete unknown.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, someone like Maria Telon is jumping on my project. I'm just a kid from up north coming down there to make a film.
Yeah.
So I was telling Jose Peña how amazing it's been that all this has been very fluid. And again, it's props to him. It's props to Katia. It's props to just the good vibes of the Guatemalan community that they've opened their doors to allow me to film down there and also work with them. Because again, I'm not proven on like this grandiose international level. And yet they're willing to make art with me. They, read the script, they fell in love with it, and they're just, let's do it. No egos involved, right? Which I love. absolutely love.
Yeah, and as your US based producer, I want to echo that sentiment because I've been working closely, I've been collaborating with them, and they've been such a dream and a pleasure to work with. And they've really shown me personally just how tight knit the Guatemalan film community is. The amount of pre production virtual calls we've had, have been substantial. And time again, when we invite new collaborators and the cameras are turned on, they're like, oh, it's so and so. Oh, yeah, we just did this project together just the other month. It's been very heartwarming and also provides a sense of security that these folks are consistently collaborating. They're on the same page. They know how to communicate. They know how to outsource. It's just been such a dream team to work with. So I think, honestly, everyone we've connected with has contributed at a large scale for this project. It's been amazing. So, with that being said, there's a lot of moving parts to the story, the production aspects. What are some key elements that you want not only investors, but overall viewers to take away from this story?
I want to fall in love with Andres the character and see in the story a lot of aspects in themselves that they can learn from and grow from, essentially to be enlightened. I think there's a lot of power in storytelling, which is why I'm a filmmaker. I used to be of the mindset, and this is, greatly due to my background as a photographer, as a cinematographer, that visuals were the thing, right? That, beautiful visuals, etc. Slap a story on top of it, you're done. But the older I've gotten into being a filmmaker, I 100% agree that it's all about the story. Absolutely. So in this film, being able to tell a great story in a beautiful country, being able to tell it with an incredible supporting group of people on the production side of things, cast, it's a dream come true. So I want people to reflect on that energy. I want people to just be excited about the possibilities of films coming to us from other locations that are just not Hollywood, for example. And I think that sentiment exists, right? I think that there's a great deal of audience throughout the world that does explore independent filmmaking, but there's still more to be done, right? As Bong Joon-ho said when he won the Academy Award for Parasite, if only audiences would make the leap, that is the barrier, the 1-inch subtitle, just make that leap, get over that, and explore the world of independent international cinema. Our lives would be so much more richer. The global community would be so much richer. For culture at large would be at a different level.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. That's strong. For sure. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jeff. I'm very excited to wrap up what is El Monje Negro. We're going to be spending a lot of quality time moving forward, and I hope to hear more from our cast and crew moving forward.
Definitely. Thank you so much, April.